Welcome back, riders. This is the sixth and final episode of recapping my big roller coaster trip for 2024. The previous 5 episodes covered each park I went to, that being Thorpe Park, Alton Towers, Blackpool Pleasure Beach, Energylandia, and Legendia. If you are interested in seeing any of those videos, feel free to check out the link to the playlist in the description of this video or in one of the cards at the end of this video. In this final episode, I'll be ranking every single roller coaster I rode on my trip. This was something I tried to predict beforehand, so if you want to hear my thoughts and what they were going into each park, feel free to check out the video in the card above, or the link will be in the description. Without further ado, let's dig in. Alright, just a couple of housekeeping notes before I dive into the list. Just like the other videos in this series, to the right of each coaster in parentheses I have whether a coaster moved up, down, or remained unchanged compared to my predictions. However, for this video I had to make some adjustments since I did not ride all 51 credits I ranked in that video. For example, for number 48 on the screen right now, Circus Coaster, I had that ranked as number 51 in my prediction video. But since I did not ride 2 coasters I had on that list, it effectively ended up being ranked 49 in that video, which results in moving up 1 spot for the purpose of this video. Hopefully that makes sense. Since I have already talked about every single coaster individually, I'm not going to be going through the list one by one. Rather, I'll be talking about anything that stands out to me, so feel free to pause the video if you do want to go one by one. Draken only fell 5 spots, but that will not take away from the fact that it was one of the worst roller coaster experiences I have ever had. The 2 big fallers, at least on this screen, were Energis and Big Dipper, each falling 9 spots. I just was not a fan of the seating orientation or position I was in for Energis. It wasn't that comfortable. And admittedly, I didn't know that much about Big Dipper going in, so maybe not the best prediction on my part there. The big risers were Runaway Mine Train and Mars, each climbing 10 spots. And both were for pretty similar reasons, being that I loved the theming / scenery. Obviously, you can't hold much weight into many of these coasters as they are mostly for kids or families, but there is one that did sneak in, or rather, fell through, I guess, that seemingly does not fit in with the rest, that being Oblivion at Alton Towers. Obviously not a huge faller, as it only fell 6 spots, but that was enough to surround itself with much smaller coasters. Moving on to the next 15 roller coasters, and we have a lot of movement, both up and down. Formula and Wickerman were both coasters I anticipated to fall in my top 10, and while Formula barely missed it, being at 11, Wickerman did not end up close. Big One was the biggest faller of the trip, falling 15 spots, but I think that's more because a bunch of coasters surprised me, rather than Big One letting me down. Sure, it wasn't as good as I expected, but it didn't disappoint me as much as something like Wickerman did. Speaking of Blackpool Pleasure Beach, the 3 biggest climbers on the entire list were all from the park, being Avalanche, Revolution, and Grand National. I was also a little surprised to see that Nemesis Inferno only fell 1 spot, as I was not nearly a fan of it as the rest of my group was. And it's also surprising given that I definitely prefer Swarm, yet Swarm also fell 1 spot and is only 1 spot above Nemesis Inferno. For the top 10, I will go one by one, but rather than talking about each ride as a whole yet again, I'll just give some super quick thoughts and some insight into why I ranked it higher than the coaster below it. Number 10 is Abysses, and it's pretty easy to see why I ranked it 1 spot ahead of Formula, as it's pretty much just Formula 2.0, bigger and better. At number 9 we have Saw the Ride, one of the biggest surprises of the trip for me. This thing is legit. I placed it above both Abysses and Formula for its better theming and crazier experience. Both Formula and Abysses don't quite have as extreme forces as Saw does, and while I do have a bias for launch coasters, Saw just packs much more of a punch. At number 8 we have Smiler. A little surprised to see that this did not change in ranking given how much I enjoyed it, but there were just a lot of good coasters on this trip. I think Saw does give Smiler a run for its money, but it's similar to Abyssus and Formula, where both Smiler and Saw are extremely similar. They're similar models, but Smiler just has so much more going for it. Better theming, it's so much longer. It's a world record holder. Number 7 is tied for the biggest faller within the top 10. New for 2024, Nemesis Reborn. Obviously a great coaster. 7 out of 49 is great. I love the theming and the uniqueness, but I do think the uniqueness in turn makes the layout fall short of a world-class invert like everyone likes to say it is. That said, it was still my favorite ride at Alton Towers, so it has to be above Smiler. Coming in at number 6 is Icon. This coaster was pretty much exactly what I expected, and it only fell one spot because it got leapfrogged by the next entry that really impressed me. After some thinking, it's actually a little surprising how similar this coaster is to Nemesis Reborn. Both are coasters that had some significant restrictions being built. Nemesis the height, and Icon having to weave through like half the rides in the park. It's a tough call between the two, but for me, I choose Icon for the launches, airtime, and I have to give it a little credit for Enso as well. Enso definitely clears Nemesis, but I don't like holding a lot of weight into unique circumstances like that when I rank my coasters. Number 5 is another big surprise from the trip, Stealth. What a rush this coaster is. It's kind of surprising how virtually everything surprised me and exceeded my expectations for Stealth, except for the launch. Stealth is significantly shorter than Icon, but it's just a much more insane experience. And it has a launch that I can respect, unlike Icon. Just missing the podium might ruffle up some feathers, but I have my anticipated number 1 coaster for the trip, Zadra. I talked about my thoughts in my Energylandia overview, but Zadra just did not resonate with me. Honestly, the more I think about it, the more I want to put stuff above Zadra, but Zadra is just much longer of a ride, so I'm picking that at the moment. Bronze medal goes to Lek Coaster. Size is not everything, and Lek Coaster is a fantastic example of that. Honestly, I did not have much trouble placing it above Zadra. I thoroughly enjoyed my rides on Lek Coaster more than Zadra. It was a bit of a struggle placing the top 2 coasters, and I thought about it for a while. But in the end, I'm putting Hyperia at number 2. This coaster only has a small handful of elements, but man, they are absolutely nuts. I have it above Lek Coaster because it has a better drop, better inversions, and it's just even more balls to the wall than Lek Coaster is. And that's saying something. That leaves Hyperion at number 1. Hyperion is a little more traditional compared to Hyperia. It's not perfect, as I would argue the duds on Hyperion are more detrimental than the duds on Hyperia, but the length on Hyperion really helps its case here. While Hyperion doesn't have as unique of elements as Hyperia, Hyperion's elements still hit extremely hard, and that is why I prefer it over any coaster I rode on my trip. That is all I have for this video, and the series as a whole. I hope you enjoyed my overview of the trip. It was a great trip, I had a ton of fun. I'd love to do it again someday. What do you think of my rankings? Feel free to let me know in the comments, and I appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the video and the series as a whole. Push down, pull up, exit to the right. Hope you enjoyed the video, and go have your greatest day yet. Choo choo, bye!